Amazing. Thank you so much for that introduction. I think we all really appreciate it. None of us wrote our own introduction, I should say so. It's the first time.
I think you wrote yours, Preetesh.
I did not. I definitely did not write that.
Preetesh, is there anywhere you haven't worked?
Netbank. I've done stuff for Netbank, but that's a whole other story. But Mike and Khensani, thank you so much for making the time. I mean, this is such an important discussion. And I think for anyone who's watching this, what's really, really important is, what I want to come out of this is the relationship between the marketing function and the CEO in the organization. And we'll get some insights in terms of how that works within Netbank. And I think some amazing case studies from your organization will really help. So jumping straight into it, Mike, do you value marketing? Do you think marketing really adds value to an organization? Or is it just a cost center instead of a revenue driver?
I really believe marketing adds value to the organization. Yeah, I mean, just why would we support an event like this if we didn't think marketing added value to our organization? And, you know, banks are complicated sort of animals, and we have lots of committees and governance and all of that. But if you look at our organization, we've got a board level subcommittee that looks after our brand and client experience. We've got an Exco level subcommittee that looks after exactly that. So I guess, you know, in a bank, if you've got your voice as the head of marketing going directly into the Exco and into the board, that tells you we absolutely value what you do. Now, marketing's complicated because, you know, in our world, it's all about numbers and returns and finance. And if you think about trying to measure the cost versus value of marketing, I mean, the way I see it is costs are reasonably easy to measure. We've got lots of accountants who know how to do that. True. Revenues are also reasonably easy to measure. We've got lots of accountants who know how to do that, but it's even more complicated because generally what you're trying to measure is incremental revenues as a result of a campaign. So that's got its own complexities. But actually, the biggest thing our marketing guys and girls do is build our brand. And if the accountants could spend as much time on measuring brand value, which doesn't appear anywhere on our balance sheet, then marketing would be so much easier to measure. So, you know, coming back to your indecent proposal, it's definitely not an indecent proposal. I'm not a movie guy, as my family would know. So I had to sort of look up about this movie. And when I was digging around a bit, you know, I started obviously where you'd expect me to. The movie cost, I think, about 38 million to make, and it grossed 267 million at the box office. So that sounds like a pretty decent outcome to me. And then you look at the actors, and I see it had Robert Redford and Demi Moore, so that's pretty cool. But actually at its essence is the trade-off between money and values.
Yes.
And if we think about what we want from our marketing department, and you know, we don't want any shortcuts in the money department. We want our marketing efforts to sustainably build the value of our brand over time. So definitely not an indecent proposal.
Amazing. I love what you say about shortcuts and not taking shortcuts in a marketing effort. But as we all know, sometimes it's easier to say it on a platform like this, and it may not be something that's experienced. And that's why I need to chat to Khensani about this. So Khensani, I mean, Mike seems like an absolute supporter of the marketing function and seems very passionate about it. Is this a reality? Is this something you experience on a day-to-day basis in your interactions, or is this something we're just hearing here? Are you hearing this for the first time?
Not at all. So he really does. And I mean, I love to give examples, right? I always think about, it's easy for marketeers when we do advertising to only focus on the building brand piece, which I think is very important because it's a fundamental of the growth of an organization. But there's the bit around how does that help you grow revenues. And if I think of the scariest campaign in my career ever, which I think two speakers have already spoken about, Pepe and Tebogo, which was the Secrets campaign. I think for a banking organization to have signed on to do a campaign like that is incredibly brave and shows just how much they believe in marketing. And actually, if you look at the process that we did, so there's something that a lot of people maybe don't know. When I showed the campaign to Mike, and normally we would do that at the end, probably before we've produced and everything, but realizing just how brave it was, I said, I think we need to get our CEO, chief executive involved up front because he needs to be comfortable that we do this. And actually, he helped, by the way, because there was, and Pepe will speak to this.
You sound surprised.
Yeah.
A little bit of marketing. She's surprised you've got a little bit of marketing.
The naming of the campaign was actually going to go in a very different direction to secrets, and Mike actually helped us in terms of saying, I'm a little bit concerned about the direction of, this campaign from a naming perspective. So again, really added value. But then he believed in it, and he believed in the insight it was coming from. He believed in what it could do for the brand and the growth of the brand. And he challenged me in terms of, okay, beyond the growth of the brand, how do we build the proof, show the proof points in the bank that are able to actually speak to what we are saying, like in terms of people speaking about money. And to the launch itself, I remember it was almost like a movie launch, and as the media came, no one knew that it was a banking ad, right? They thought it was some movie in South Africa. Mike was actually with me at the launch itself, and we were on the panel together. So I absolutely do get his support, but it's not just blind support. I'm actually challenged by him many times. As I said, one, impact on changing the campaign name, but two, saying to me, but what are the proof points for this campaign to say Nedbank really does help you see money differently?
Amazing, and that was an amazing campaign as well. Won a Grand Prix at the Loeries, which is amazing. It's the highest accolade that you can absolutely get. So Mike, obviously in terms of your support for the marketing function and wanting to be invested in the process, as Khensani has highlighted, that must come from a place of really understanding and believing the value that it's bringing. So how do you measure it? As you said, you've got the accountants who can go out and measure every other aspect of the business. But for you to give you that peace of mind that marketing is really making an effort, where do you actually look for the numbers? What metrics are you looking at?
Yeah, so, I don't think there's an easy answer to that. Clearly, there's some aspects that you would like always to boil down to metrics. What was the cost? What was the incremental return? Is that an appropriate investment, et cetera, et cetera? But I'm always reminded, I think Albert Einstein said something like, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. And I think that's how you've got to try and measure things. There's clearly that bit that you can count, and that's really, really important. But there's also, in my mind, a lot that comes down to judgment. And there's lots of measurements that are not entirely accurate, but point you in a direction that enables you then to join the dots. So clearly one would look at things like the ROIs, etc. But I also look at things like how is our customer sentiment performing? What's our net promoter score? What's going on in social media? That's one way, that's one dots to join. I look at what's going on in our staff surveys, because quite often what's going on in your brand plays out, I suppose in the old days at the water cooler or the coffee machine. Now it's on the WhatsApp groups while you're on Microsoft Teams. But that gives you kind of some dots to join together to try and figure out that in the round, is this adding value? And I know it does.
Amazing. What's also useful is overall industry, organizational leadership as well. And it's great that Mike's such a great supporter, and I love the passion that's come through. But Khensani, how do you find it at Exco level? So obviously at Exco level, you've got a diverse group of people, a lot of people who don't come from the marketing function, and obviously Mike was passionate about it. Do you find the same level of passion coming from other areas of the organization, and are you able to truly share all of these intricate details of the campaign with everyone?
So I don't think it's 100%, but I do think that if I look at from an Exco level, Mike has built a team where we all respect each other functionally. So if I look at Trevor, who runs risk, for example, and I'm a marketeer, I'm always like, risk and stuff. But I have a lot of respect for the role that Trevor plays in the growth of organization. If I look at Deb, who runs HR, it's the same from a marketing perspective. I think Mike has been able to build a team of functional experts who have a real respect for each other. So I get that respect from my counterparts. But I'm also quite clear, right, that in order for me to earn that respect, I need to show, the value. So even whenever I talk about marketing, I don't only talk about the awards and, the lovely sort of creative piece. It's why I love marketing, right, because you've got both the logic as well as the creativity piece. I have to bring it back to the growth of organization. For example, we've got a challenge right now in terms of our market share amongst young people, youth. So when I speak to the RBB, the Retail and Business Banking team, my focus is how are we growing market share with the youth? Then they know that actually my mind space is not just about creating great advertising or winning awards, but it's really about how do we make sure that Nedbank wins in the market. And I think when you do that and you change the conversation, absolutely your colleagues on Exco start to really believe in what you're doing. And then you also see it as an Exco when we present to the board our yearly plans, there's always a brand slot in terms of, so what are we going to be doing from a brand perspective? How is the marketing going to help in growing? And now, I mean, you look at digital marketing being a bigger part, obviously, of our budgets and stuff. One of our board subcommittees, which is the GitCo one, which is the information tech piece, they're asking for an update every single time on digital marketing and how it's helping to grow. So you have to change the conversation to be yes, about all the lovely stuff we love as marketeers, the creativity, but also around the growth of the organization that you're working for. Then you'll get the respect.
Amazing. And then also I think it's also important to have strong leadership who's passionate about it as well. So maybe Mike, just to have a look at it if you look at supporting the marketing function, how important is it for you as the head and the leader of the organization to be able to support the work that's happening, to almost evangelize it again with everyone else in the organization, especially the Exco, and then trickling all the way down to the newest members of your team?
Yeah, look, I think, if you say what is one of the most basic jobs of a CEO is to make sure that you have the right experts in the right seats on your Exco team. And all of them bring an equally valued piece to the party that in the round is Nedbank. So, I think what the CEO's job is to try and make sure that there's the right balance of voices being heard. And certainly in the bank, it's very easy to have a very strong, overpowering voice around finance, risk, capital management, interest rate risk management, etc. Because that's just so much part of what the business is. But if that was your only business without any brand recognition, it doesn't work. So for me, the real magic is to get the balance right.
I love what you're saying about balance, because it segues really nicely into my next thought and the next question. Obviously, in part of this balance process, you do have imbalances sometimes, and those lead to a little bit of conflict or disagreement, should we say. Now, obviously, we're chatting about the Secrets campaign where Mike was involved and able to give some direction to where it goes. But obviously, it must be other campaigns or other ideas sometimes where Mike may not be interested in it or feels it's the absolute wrong direction for this organization that he's a custodian of. How do you manage this conflict, Khensani? How do you ensure that you're able to push your point of view while still dealing with some of the challenges that may come from Mike's side?
Yeah, look, I think firstly, I'm incredibly fortunate that I haven't had that experience where Mike has said. So generally, I think in my 3 years on the job, I've been very lucky that the work that we've put on the table has been insight-driven. So I've had the support, so I've never really had to experience that. But beyond that, actually, we have quite challenging conversations at Exco when it comes to, so not just the campaigns, in terms of where the thinking is, in terms of what you're trying to do. So from a digital marketing perspective, some of the conversations are, but is what you're doing really attributable to your growth? So I think we've got a good enough relationship where we're able to have those conversations. And I mean, I've had people on the Exco also say to me, like, our current campaign, I think, is quite challenging for a lot of people, right? I've had people say, yeah, okay, so I'm really uncomfortable about a bank saying this. I mean, if you look at one of the ads itself, it's got a car, and as a bank, we obviously give vehicle financing. But I think when we are all on the same page around our brand is got a clear North Star, which is to use our financial expertise to do good. And what that means is that we have to really help people manage their money better. When we are all on the same page, the chief executive, the full Exco, then the work actually, and it gets support and approval. And actually, any conversation becomes like any disagreement becomes an objective disagreement because you're all clear about what your North Star is.
I think it's great. And Mike, do you agree with this? Because I'm sure you'd have something to add in terms of managing expectations and the conflict that may come, not just maybe with Khensani, but across the marketing department itself. How do you manage it when you're faced with a campaign, an idea, or a direction for the brand that you don't believe is the right direction to go?
Well, I suppose, the way I think about it is that not everybody's going to be an expert on everything. And actually what causes a lot of conflict in organizations is when people think that they are experts in absolutely everything, not only their own discipline, but everything else. So the way I think about marketing is I know for sure I'm not the expert in Nedbank in marketing. That's Khensani. So my job is to ask the stupid questions, to push and prod a bit, and see what responses I get. And if the responses I get are sensible and make sense with my limited marketing knowledge and background, then I back her, because my job was to put her in her seat. And her job is to run the marketing department, not my job.
I love taking the ownership and responsibility there. So that's amazing. I mean, one of the other things as well, Khensani, I was thinking about your comment in terms of the North Star. One of the things we recognize as marketers as well and as large organizations, the communication you put out really shapes society and really changes the thinking, and transformative imagery is so important at this point. I mean, how important is it for you to be able to put messaging out? And maybe I want to dwell a bit more on some of what you highlighted there. How important is it to put messaging out there that really transforms society and pushes society in a positive direction?
Interesting. I think this is probably one of the challenges we have, right? Because I get challenged on sell. Why are you challenging societal norms in terms of how they spend money and consumerism versus investorism? Just sell a bank account. And actually, as brands, we play a much bigger role in society, and we have to step up to that. What I absolutely love about Nedbank, by the way, is from Mike Brown, our chief executive, you can go to our branch. I'll challenge you to go to any of our branches and ask our teller, what's Nedbank's purpose, and they will tell you what it is, because it is something we speak about often, we live, and we don't live it on everything, but we are certainly trying to do it 100% of the time. So for me, I think brands play a much bigger role. In fact, there was a conversation we had about transformation and diversity. Brands play a role in terms of showcasing how diverse the society is. Brands play a role in challenging our views about what society can look like. So for me, one thing that I love about the Nedbank brand, because of our purpose and North Star, is we play a really big role in challenging people's relationship with money. We're not just here to just sell. We have to do it in a responsible manner, but ultimately knowing actually that good credit, good debt can help you transform your family and your society. So for me, I love that in my job, I actually get to do that balance.
I can actually notice this now too. I've been a Nedbank client, strange enough, Mike, I've been a Nedbank client since I was about 5 years old. And my entire journey, I'm 40 now, so for 35 years I've been a client in Nedbank. And you can actually notice the change in terms of the communication, the way it's gone, and in terms of being more, I don't say responsible, you've always been responsible, but really more closer to the consumer in understanding who I am, which is amazing. So now that we've reached this point, I think, Mike, as well, I mean, if you look at the overall marketing department, the work that they're doing, and obviously it's amazing work that's getting a lot of accolades, and there's a lot of recognition from consumers and various different parts of society. What else do you want this department to do? What do you want your marketing department to be able to achieve if you actually look at it?
Oh, it's a long list.
I'm glad it's a long list. It's good.
Look, I think if we had to say, I mean, there's always more to be done, and every day you wake up with new ideas, and that's one of the wonderful things about life. But if I had to say, and this is not a surprise to Khensani, where are the big focus areas right now? I mean, the big focus area is to up our game in digital marketing and the flow through from digital marketing into seamless abilities to transact and click-through rates and all of those things. And I think we've made fantastic progress there. But, if you sort of go back to where we started this conversation around some of the difficulties in measuring marketing, what digital has done is made a whole bunch of those easier because there are fingerprints everywhere and you can measure fingerprints. So I certainly think a continued big push in that digital marketing area, and we've onboarded a bunch of that in the last 2 years or so and made fantastic progress. And then, I think the second thing is I think we're doing an awesome job in our external brand. We've got to focus more on our internal brand with staff inside the organization. So those would be the two, digital marketing and internal branding.
One of the other things, I think also when I think about branding as well, is obviously the responsibility is a lot larger. It's not just specifically within the organization. And if you look at marketing as a function, Khensani, one of the things I've been chatting to a lot of people about, and they've been bringing up this idea of the juniorization of marketing. I've heard those exact words, where they go, within organizations, some organizations, the marketing function really does not have the power to actually go out and make a positive change. And it seems like within the Nedbank organization, that's not the case. But in terms of the work that you're doing, in terms of being an example for marketing as a function, as a job overall for the entire industry, how important is it for people in the marketing function to be able to have a strong voice and to be able to go out there and to be able to lead organizations?
You know, we are, as marketeers, we understand consumer behavior, right? Mm-hmm. Better than a lot of CAs. And actually, I really think that we should step up to the plate a lot more than we do right now. We're the ones holding ourselves back. I actually think our voice in terms of understanding client behavior, why they do what they do, why they make the choices that they do, is a lot stronger than a lot of people. If you just make a call based on just understanding the product and without understanding the consumer on the other side, I think you make a mistake. But I think we hold our voices back for whatever reason. And for me, it's really up to us to step change that voice and really bring it up. And you know, I forced myself into conversations at Nedbank that potentially I shouldn't be in. I literally decided, well, because if you think about it, I come from FMCG. At Unilever, the marketing people are the heart of the organization.
Yes.
At Vodacom, where I was, it's the product guys who are creating bundles. At Nedbank, it's the finance and risk people, right? It's easy as a marketeer to decide, well, you know, I'm not that important. I said, well, that's just not going to happen. I'm actually going to bring the voice of the client here and make sure that people understand the role that brand and marketing can play. And I put myself into conversations that you wouldn't expect. This, I mean, so many examples I can tell you where I just decide to take the baton, and it's up to us. I think we hold ourselves back in terms of the role we can play.
I completely agree. I mean, I also come from FMCG, and one of the things, Mike, is, you probably know, it's in FMCG, you own the P&L. So throughout my entire career, I've been used to owning the P&L. So I always have to ask, I mean, what is the potential at some point for somebody from a marketing function to go on to lead Nedbank? Could we have a marketer as a CEO of Nedbank at some point?
Absolutely.
Well,
There's
Kiko,
no reason,
right?
there's no reason why that
Kiko
couldn't
had
happen.
my job,
Yeah.
and now he's running retail.
He's running our
business
retail
banking.
business.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. See, so that's amazing, because I do believe that you know, you can hold and manage a P&L really, really well. And there's absolutely no reason for somebody who's a marketer to not go out and be a CEO of a financial institution, hopefully.
Absolutely. I mean, you would need to complement that with some of the, you know, more technical banking skills that the Reserve Bank will want to make sure a CEO has, et cetera,
Absolutely, yes.
But absolutely no reason.
Okay, amazing. One of the things I do want to focus on, and I think we cannot leave without discussing this COVID pandemic that's going. Every business has been impacted in it. I know Nedbank's been impacted. But whenever this happens, we're used to it. Budgets get cut, the communication drops. Khensani, how have you managed this? I mean, what has been the experience at Nedbank, and how have you ensured that you're still able to deliver the communication to the end consumer that they need during this time?
You know what I found quite striking, because I wouldn't have expected that at a bank, right? Because I've been in so many organizations where, you know, you just get told by the CFO, cut your marketing budget. Actually, in the context of Nedbank, the conversation was, we need savings to come back in, right, based on where we think we're going to end up from a headline earnings perspective. But, Kenzo, you need to do that responsibly in the context of understanding that we still need to talk about and build the brand during that time. So it was actually mine and my marketing team's recommendation on what the budget cut should be. We didn't get told, cut by this, which I think was like really fantastic. At the same time, we were in the middle of our Nedbank Cup campaign, and we had to pivot very quickly. And again, I mean, just speaking to Mike and then some of the other MEs who run the business areas and stuff in terms of here's how we're going to pivot, had really good support on that. So we were able to move quickly. I mean, during that time, if you look at our sentiment, especially like the first 3 months of COVID, Nedbank had the most positive brand sentiment across all the banks in terms of how we responded. And that's because, yes, we realized that we had to cut budget, but we had to do it in a way where we were still building our brand and making sure that clients knew that we were there for them, and our employees internally also knew that we were.
Amazing. Mike, as we have our few final seconds, last words to you. Obviously, as marketers, you need to influence your CEO. What traits do you think a marketer needs to have, and what attributes should they come with in order to be able to positively influence a CEO and ensure they can make impact on the organization and society at large?
It's also a long list. No, you know, I think at its essence is marketers need to understand the strategy of the organization, and then ensure that what they are building and rolling out in the marketing environment is aligned to that strategy. So if you can join those dots, fantastic. Second, I think, not too many marketing lingos that not everybody else understands, sort of bring it down to the simple things that the accountants can understand. But probably for me, first and foremost, is how you show up. How do you show up in meetings? How do you show up in teams? Because you're an important part of a team. How do you engage with other people? And I think CEOs watch those things, and how you do those things enables you to build trust.
Amazing. Wise words indeed. Mike Brown, Khensani Nobanda, thank you so much for your time, for all of the advice, and I look forward to the brave marketers out there taking this and running with it. Appreciate both of you. Thank you so much.
Preetesh.
Thanks, everybody.